Okay, so we are going to be talking about another one of my favorite subjects that I am very passionate about, particularly in the context of business, and that is overcoming survival mode. And about us really having the privilege to thrive. So let's just start with, what is survival mode?
Okay, and let me put a context to that, because it's like, why does it even matter in business, right? And the why it matters and why I think it's really important is that it's easy. We talk about mindset, right, in business. Mindset, bottom line, is really one huge important element. And for mindset, you have to overcome fear, because that's usually the nemesis that gets us stuck. And so what I feel that if people really understand that fear is not so much an emotion as it is actually a physiological reality in our body, then it's a lot easier to know what to do with it. And I'll definitely explain all of that. But so basically, our nervous system has been wired over ages, right? Thousands of years to protect us, right? So to make us safe. And so the way our nervous system responds is actually to stimuli that we pick up in our bodies. So we receive information in our bodies that can come from sound, from smell, from all kinds of things. And then it's the brain, it goes to the amygdala. And that's where there's a moment of choice. And the choice comes because we also now have what's called the hippocampus and the frontal brain. Before we evolved to having that, we would immediately go into survival mode. And so for survival mode, all the functions work differently. The brain, the blood, oh my goodness, there's somebody at the door. This is a little embarrassing, I'm sorry, but I'll let that be. So disregard the ringing. But what happens is that the brain, the circulation to the brain drains away, and it goes to our extremities for running or, fight, flight, freeze mode, all of that, which I'm sure you've heard about. But there is a real, it's really a physiological thing that happens. And that's how we are wired. So it really helps to give ourselves first a break, saying, okay, that's how we're done. And that's how our body actually responds. Now, that doesn't mean we have to stay there. We have evolved. And there are ways of working with what would otherwise be an autonomic nervous system response, right? So, and that's the good news I'd like to share with you as well. But that's what survival mode is. And that's why often our fears, we can allow our fears to stop us.
I love that. Thank you for explaining that in depth. It's such a fascinating subject, because a lot of the clients that I work with, the business is in survival mode because they're in survival mode because they are the business. And it's a lot of the time for me, it's about helping them to move out of that space of survival into thriving, and the amount of personal work that needs to go into that to help that person to firstly recognize that the business is in a place of survival, and then how we move into a place of being able to start thriving.
Mm-hmm. And I think there is, I think you're very right that there's usually a correlation in what you're feeling and how you're reacting inside is often what you're manifesting on the outside, right? So, I mean, we are the same people that are running our own businesses, so it absolutely makes sense. And I think too that so many business people and entrepreneurs get down on themselves because they seem stuck. They seem stuck so long. And not that I want to make excuses, but understanding that our stuckness is part of us is huge. So first is just acceptance. Accept that that's how we're wired. And ask me how we can unwire, or first of all, how do we know we're in that state, right?
Exactly.
because so I'm taking the words away. But
it's because I'm thinking, digesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
No. So for me, it's actually, and that's because we do have this prefrontal thinking brain, right? That we have it, so we may as well use it, right? So one of the things that we can tell is that if we keep making excuses for our progress, or we don't take action, right? Those are, they are signs, because basically we're sabotaging ourselves based on fear, whether we want to admit it or not. And fear comes in all kinds of forms. It could be an inferiority complex, or like the list of crazy excuses, like I can't do this because, or it's not the right time for, or this person has this advantage. Or when we start justifying and finding ourselves doing that, comparing, and the not good enough, the imposter syndrome, I'm trying to think of all the things, but all of those, there's plenty of them, right?
Yeah.
When we start spinning in that, we're basically reacting from that survival mode patterning. Because here's what happens with survival mode. It's actually a neurological patterning. So we keep repeating the same behaviors because we haven't interrupted the loop. We haven't slowed down enough to notice it, right? And also, I mean, information helps. If you know that this is happening, it's easier to go, oh, okay, well, what can I do about it? If you don't know that it's normal, then you're just going to feel even more horrible about yourself and for not succeeding, right? So I think knowledge is important. And then noticing the behaviors that we do. So some of them, for example, is the fear of being seen. That is a real fear that people often experience. And it's actually wired into us because of our survival conditioning.
Right.
The other one is I'll call this self-soothing busyness.
Yeah.
Now,
I see that a lot.
in other words, it's the I'm so guilty of this many times.
Yeah,
I mean, I really had to say, wait a minute here. Oh my goodness. Because I work with trauma. I work with, and I'm going, this is not the most important thing I'm doing here. I'm doing this because it's self-soothing. It's taking care of the little things that I like to have done, like clean my desktop, or, and it's not actually going to move my business forward. It may make me feel better, which is good. It's some advantage, but it's this busyness of keeping busy. And then, you get a call and you say, oh, I can't do anything. I'm too busy. I'm working, and it's like, you're working, but what have you done? You've checked all your emails, you've done your few social media posts, you've, whatever. But, have you actually done the one or two or three things that moves your business forward? And the answer will be no.
Yeah.
Because you're in self-soothing mode. That's the problem, right? So I think when you notice that you're doing things that are busy-like, but not effective, you're it's a pattern. It's a pattern that you need to change. Another thing too is it's like a disconnection from our body.
Right.
So if we are sitting endlessly, it can't be good for our body. Well, it isn't good for our body. I think now the research is out there, right? But we're so disconnected that we're not noticing any of our processes, any of what our body is actually telling us. So, and that also is a cycle, especially now during these times where, more people are on a line and constantly there. In some ways, it's so easy to get disconnected completely and to be thinking that we're just one head without a body, right? And why it's important to recognize that we actually need our bodies. It's because most of the information that's feeding our nervous system actually comes from our body. It's not the other way around, right? We think it's our brain. Yeah. It's really it's a stimuli from our body's systems that is being interpreted by our brain. Right? That's what we have to understand. So, for example, if you don't notice slight shortness of breath or talking incessantly or, your heartbeat that goes a little faster, those are all signs of stress that your body's holding in. And we're not even paying attention. But the loop in our brain is keeping us in autonomic system mode and automatic behavior mode, right? So that I think is it's important.
I love what you say about the loop. One of the things that keeps me in the loop, and now I've really become aware of it from hearing you speak, is that I always say to myself, why am I not getting this? That's my loop. I'll say it a lot. Why am I not getting this?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's the loop, isn't it? It's like...
Yeah, pretty well. It's loop. I mean, this is the, and I think, how do we move from that state? It's I think you spelt it exactly. It's awareness. You become aware. This is a pattern. Oh, here I'm doing this again, or I'm doing that again, or I have fear. The moment you feel fear, you need to become aware of it. And that's the beautiful thing is, the stimuli that we're getting was based to protect us. But currently, and though that might be changing, we're not, at least all of us that are on Zoom calls and have the privilege to do these kinds of things, we're really not in the same position as we were when our bodies were first created, right? We don't have a tiger that's going to run after us. We actually have, we drive, let's say, with cars with seatbelts. We have a house with walls and a roof. We're actually not in this dire survival mode, anymore. And I think it's really important to understand that when we have this fear, what it really means now is that our brain is habituated automatically to exaggerate what we're experiencing because it's based on this past. Yeah. And we have to stop and say, wait a minute here, I'm just trying to do a Facebook Live. That's all I'm trying to do. It's not that bad, right? It's being able to relativize and catch it in before you go down the route of believing the thoughts that justify your behavior, right? It's really catching it in that moment. And I think the only way we can do that is slow things down, which sounds the antithesis of most people trying to get things done. They're trying to go so fast, but that's why we don't get done what we need to get done to move the needle forward. And what we consciously want to get done is because we're not slowing down. We're not slowing down enough.
Loop. Yeah, it continues the loop, doesn't it? So you don't recognize it or see it.
Exactly. And and you know, how do you slow down? Okay. That's I've thought about that many times, and I think it for me it started washing dishes. So, very simple activity that once in a while when you get up to get a glass of water or make tea, you know, you might wash the glass or something, especially if it's not made it to the or something like that. And I would start attention to the water coming through my hands, or, you know, on my hands, and I would notice the water, and it actually slows time down, because when you become very present to the thing you're doing, the moment becomes more infinite. Right? You actually relax your brain into the present.
Yeah. Because my brain, I can only speak for my brain because I don't, but my brain has a habit of, it's a problem solver. All it wants to do is solve the next problem and the next problem and the next problem. And it's interrupting that. So for you, was the washing, the water, slowing down. For me, it has to be meditation. You know, guided meditation helps me slow down. And then I can catch.
Right. And the thing too is problem solving is awesome. It's a great skill. It may not be the problem, but for example, the question would be, all the solutions you're bringing to the problems you're solving, are they manifesting in the universe?
No. They're all based on, why am I not getting this? Which is the loop.
Right. It's the loop. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I was going to say, because, you know, everything has to be seen in its own, in its own context, you know? So yeah, it's you know, some people call it mindfulness, but it's really intentional attention. You know, it's being aware of where you're placing your attention and how you're interpreting what your attention is bringing up this state of awareness, right? That's the sitting with it for a moment, whether it's sitting, walking, doing dishes, whatever works for you, you know?
So how can we move into a space where we can start to thrive? So once we've recognized that we have a loop, the endless loop, how can we then like move into it?
So the first thing, recognizing it now, bringing that gap, that mindfulness, right? It's that allows us to rewire these fear responses. It's what gives us then the perspective that the fear is fictive, that it's an exaggerated fear. So whenever you feel not good enough, not big enough, not small enough, not thin enough, not fat enough, not ahead enough, not too late, too big, too small, too whatever enough, just not enough, you know that that's not true. I mean, it isn't true. That's the whole thing. It's fear that brings up these excuses in your automatic brain. Yeah. So if you recognize that and just play with me for a minute and just say, okay, all these things, the moment I have a thought I don't like, I'm going to disregard the thought. And I do this with my patients. I say, if you don't like the thought, then put it in a little cloud and wish it away. Because the job of thoughts is just, it's a wheel. It'll just keep thinking. Yeah. And then focus on where do you want to go? You know, what is your vision? What is your mission? and take the next step in that direction. And sometimes it's feeling the fear for a minute. There's a statement, I think it's feel the fear and do it anyways. Or something.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Which is true, but I'm not emphasizing feeling the fear. I'm just saying recognize that anything that is a thought that keeps looping, or any bad thought you have, or when you connect to your body more, any sensation that your body is experiencing is bringing you into this loop. So take a breath, become aware, and then connect to the very next step that you could be doing in the direction of where you want to go.
Yeah.
So stop it. Literally stop it.
I love the way you just go, stop it. I mean, if only it was that easy, my brain's going. That loop is, it's interesting what you're saying about fear, because I never thought of that loop as fear. So that's the bit I need to explore. What's the fear behind that? What's the stuckness behind that?
Well, yeah, and you can analyze that, or simply recognize that when you have this loop, stop it. Like, I know it sounds so ridiculous, but it's true. Stop it and take a different action. Take an action in the direction of what you know you need to do, because that's why we have the prefrontal brain, right? It's to think. It gives us context. It gives us perspective. It gives us the ability to plan, to choose the behaviors that lead us in the direction we want to go, right? That's the function of this. So, and we have it. So it's like, okay, take that break, stop, and then go, okay, wait a minute. Or, some people, they wake up and they go, what are the 2 or 3 things I must get done today so it's a business, to move your business along, to move your life along, your relationship along. It really doesn't matter. But what are the things that I need to accomplish? And then when that fear comes in, it's like, okay, all right, I know that thing. I know that trick. It's a mind trick, basically. Yeah. And just do it. Just go through it. Post the video you don't want to do because you're not having a happy hair day or whatever the story is.
No one's having a happy hair day at the moment.
No one. That is correct. I will agree.
Oh, I had a thought then. It's just gone, come back. It was a good one. Are you, because of everything that's going on, the last time we spoke, I think the virus had just started. And now the other things are happening around the world. Are you noticing a heightened sense of people moving into more of a survival space, and more of an anxious space?
Absolutely. And I think here's the thing. It's first the fear of the virus, because at first it was the fear of the unknown. Now that I think it's complicated, because I know that colleagues of mine and other people who have voiced what we know from our understanding of the body's physiology, its immune system, all of this, we really can't speak anymore. Or if we speak, our posts disappear, so it's a very interesting time. So there's the fear of the virus, which I think has come, some people in the fear mode who don't realize they're in the fear mode and only receive a certain amount of fear-mongering attitudes are definitely in that loop. But there's also the fear, and now we're kind of seeing that it's like a bad flu, but it's not near anything that was happening. Other people now are really realizing that people are not getting the care they need. The suicide rate has skyrocketed. I think it's 900% higher right now. The depression, the anxiety, the suffering And then we add the economic realities that small businesses are closing everywhere, whether it's, practitioners, small restaurants, small furniture shops, like people can't pay their rent or their mortgage. So there is a justifiable now survival range for a larger and larger part of the population. Mm-hmm. So all my great tricks are not for them. There really is a crisis now. But let's say that it doesn't help staying in that to take action or to share that this is a reality, or to let it be known, what people are experiencing, so I think it's both. It never helps unless you're running away for survival, to stay in that survival mode. I think that's, it is helpful to do this work, but it's definitely, it's a real situation in this world at this stage,
Yeah, I mean, I can only speak for myself, but I've definitely had the roller coaster of, because in the past I've suffered with extreme anxiety, so I have to be really careful. Mm-hmm. So I've had to turn off the news. I've had to do a whole load of things to protect my own mental space, but I've definitely been on a roller coaster where I've been okay, then I've crashed, and then I've been okay again, and now it's leveled out, I'm pleased to say. It'll probably go down again, but I've got the strategies to be able to come back up again. So it's definitely a roller coaster. Mm-hmm. I just want to say to people that that's okay. It's okay. And there are people that, like yourself, who can help you with what it is that you are feeling, what it is that you are experiencing. And I know your bonus training is about, navigating stress. Can you tell me a little bit more about the bonus?
Sure. So, I mean, the backstory of this is that in my practice in 30 years, I've used a physical therapy that does wonders in breaking this cycle, because whether it's PTSD, whether it's trauma, whether it's just stress, which is basically responsible for 95% of all conditions and diseases. So it's not just stress, it's a massive thing we all experience, right? That we can actually break that loop through an extremely gentle, synchronized type of touch, let's call it like that. So it's not massage, it's not like feel good, it's break the loop good. It's change our internal system and release tremendous stress. And so when I closed my practice and I decided to share this really with the world, I have a home care kit that people can do with their kids, their family, for their elders. It's all of that that's available to people now. And my goal is to get this out so people can take charge of their health, and they can actually deal with the stress, in their body. And so what I'm inviting everyone to is I have a webinar that explains a little bit about how all of this is tied in. So, and it tells you a little bit what the work is. And if you're interested, of course, you can go ahead and do more. But I do give a 6-week training so that people understand this. Because like I started this talk, if you don't have the information, it's really hard to, why do you need another course? We have so many courses we don't use and we don't do anything with it, So I feel it's really important to understand why this is so essential and why people need this now, absolutely more than ever.
That's great. What I've done is I've put the link in the chat box, and I've also got in the email, and I've also got the link on the speaker lineup page as well. So if we put this then in the context, I'm trying to think what the question is, in the context of business, in the context of solopreneurship, because lots of, well, probably everyone who's listening to this and will catch the replay are solopreneurs. What's my question? What is one thing that they can do to, that's not the question isn't coming. The question isn't coming. What I'm trying to ask in terms of a question is, I guess it's what we've spoken about. It's about recognizing the loop, that you have moved into a place of, feeling anxious, maybe stuck, overwhelmed, recognizing that bit which we've spoken about, and then the next step you can take to move. Because what we don't want, obviously, is for people just to stay stuck, but to be able to acknowledge where they are and then to go, okay.
Yeah. And I think what I could add to that is that there's two things, and I'll go back to my stop, but stop the thoughts that cycle and make you feel bad, because they're not going to help you. But the other thing is know that if you can't solve it with thoughts, that there is a possibility that the stress that you're experiencing is a feedback loop in your body itself. Okay. And that's where the most effective way to deal with that is what I call reboot your body. It literally is. And that's why I decided to choose that name. It's like you have to sometimes turn, it's like we have all these programs, right? Yeah. We have Word, we have PowerPoint, we have that, and they start spinning. And it's not that the programs are broken. It's just that we need to turn down, shut off, and reboot, and then they work again. And it's the same in our bodies. Sometimes our wires are crossed, but we're not broken.
Yeah, I love what you say about the reboot. I think that's awesome, because I live in my head. My body doesn't exist. It's like my head, if you could just take my head off my body, that would be it. So from what I'm hearing you're saying, there's a block somewhere in terms of, that's why I've constantly...
Yeah, because you're
doing this.
Right, because your body might be running your head.
Yeah. Yeah, which makes perfect sense. Yeah, and that's something I only learned, it must have been in the last 6 months or so, that your body can actually will take control of your brain.
Absolutely.
Which, if you've ever had an anxiety attack or a panic attack, that's what happened. My body just took over my brain and was going, no, I'm not having this. Exactly. My brain was going, why am I not getting this?
Yeah. Meanwhile, it's got no blood and it can't think straight, because that's the function of it. So,
yeah. Okay. So please do get the download, and also with the download as well, make sure that, I'd like to ask a favor, and I would like you to share the download with other people in your network, because there are a lot of people who are in a position where they are experiencing high levels of anxiety, stress, overwhelm. So this will be good to help them to reconnect and potentially find a way forward, which can only be a good thing in my book. So please, everyone, do share the link, and I will be sending it out again as well. But I just want to check in and see if anybody has any questions. So please unmute yourself. Seems like such an alien word, unmute yourself. And if you would like to ask a question, that would be absolutely great. Then it can be set in context to your own experience. Anyone coming on?
No. Right. If it's shyness, that's a good response.
Happens a lot. Online, yeah. Well, if you have a question, you can pop it in the chat box. You can reach out later on. What's the best way that people can get hold of you?
Well, like literally, if you go to my webinar, I'm actually there. I actually talk with people. So, feel free to contact me that way, and support. It's support@bowencollege.com is where my emails are being filtered at this point. So reach me out that way, and then at least we can guide you to the right thing that might be right for you.
Yeah, because you also have a lot of people in your network as well, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So Connie's just said, definitely like the idea of cancel that thought. That's definitely what I'm going to be doing.
That's a great way of saying it. Yeah, it's true. If it's not good, it's not for you. Just let it go.
I can't believe it took me so long to acknowledge that. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. Connie,
well, it's funny, because...
Yeah, sorry.
No, I was going to say, I've taken so many marketing and business courses and all that, because how do I get this out? How do I share this with the world, right? And it's interesting, people have said, like things as simple as that, but because I had this idea that I really need to understand that, I'm not going to just believe that. So I was actually searching for why, because I'm a information junkie. I need to understand why. Why do we wear a mask? Why don't we? What's the real, you can ask me that too, but not here. but basically it's like, I want to question everything, right? So I need to understand it on some level to be able to go forward. And, that's kind of me. Like, understanding is also understanding the body, right? It's also listening to the body. And most people think that the entire process is just their thoughts, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's also how their body feels. It's also signals of their body, right? And we forget that.
Yeah. My head's definitely forgotten that. It's going around like this, literally, in my head. Yeah. On another subject in terms of masks, because I'm in Thailand, it's actually the law in Thailand that you have to wear a mask. It's the law. There's a big, I think it's a 20,000 baht fine if you're caught by the police not wearing a mask. So it's the law here, which is interesting because in England, you don't have to wear a mask. I just find it fascinating that every country has a different rule.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think that the thing is the science is not there to back it up.
Wow,
so when we have a system that where the true discussion of science, right, which is an evolving reality, right? It's, but to really discuss this, that platform's not out there.
Yeah.
So it's like certain chosen scientists are the ones followed by politicians that make laws, right? So that's why there's so much, talk about another level of fear people are having, because they don't trust it. And they have every reason not to trust this anymore, right? Because it doesn't make sense. Or, distancing, social distancing. Now, maybe, but there's actually no evidence on that. Now, on the other hand, slowing down the curve or whatever, because you don't want to have too many people all at once at the very beginning of, at least an epidemic. You want to find out. You don't know. So it's okay to be not precautious. Is that the right word in English?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Okay. To be precautious, for sure. It makes sense. Like everyone should. But then we start to look at the evidence of what's happening. And, so for me, it's like you need to always look at all sides. We really need to be able to discuss freely. And that's what's not happening. And I find that extremely concerning. Why can't we have these actual discussions?
Yeah.
So that I find difficult, because we're not talking about real science here, and things change.
But another loop of a different making.
Oh, exactly. Or we have like these drugs might work or these drugs might not work, and we realize it's all political. it actually has nothing to do with the drug, or it has to do with potentially whether there's a patent on it, whether there's money to be made with this or with that. If you start looking at that, I mean, that's why so many people are confused. I get so many calls like, what do you think? And it's like, gosh, I don't know what to think other than we're not having real discussions. We're not having open debate, which is so essential to any society.
Yeah, because otherwise it just feeds into that anxiety, the fear.
Well, exactly, because if you don't have the fear of the virus, you might have the fear of the government, or you might have the fear of these huge monopolies, that are controlling some of the technologies, or the making of the vaccine, for example. When you start looking at all that, we're told one thing. It's like, they've worked on a coronavirus for years. It's very hard to do. They haven't made it yet. And now we're speed tracking through. We're going to have the answer. Really? And is it going to be safe? Things like that, and you look at, what are the safety things about this? Because if you have children, you're always concerned, or elderly parents, you're going to look at, well, okay, I'm sure there's safety, and then I started looking, no, actually, they're exempt from any claims should something go wrong. So it's like, wow, gee, that's interesting. Like, we should be talking about this, like what's going on in that way. And I think, so many people are asking questions. I don't have the answers, just saying. But I think it starts by curiosity. It starts by questions. And, I think I've always lived my life asking questions. And I think that's a good use of that frontal part. Let's ask questions.
I love what you're saying, because it actually really does still feed into, survival and moving into a place of thriving. Because if you don't become consciously aware and you don't start asking questions, like what I've just discovered in terms of the loop, why am I still in that loop? Well, if we don't ask the questions, we can't move. That's how we get stuck in business. That's how, we can't pick ourselves back up again. So I think, for me, the main message from the conversation with you is that whole curiosity, the questions, what's underneath that. Then you can start to move into a place of being able to thrive, because you're starting to explore and get some clarity around your thoughts and what you're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the key thing is to have conversations with people. But
absolutely.
Conversations with people who don't necessarily think the same thing as you.
Exactly. And I think that's essential. And, we're in such a, divisive society, and everything is made to be, where our thoughts are so, it's like we judge others that don't have the same thought. We separate. I mean, people are shunned if they don't wear a mask, or if they do wear a mask. It depends where you're living, right? And it's like we go into that instead of going, wow, clearly the information hasn't been talked enough about, or people who are trying to share information. I mean, there's lots of people who can explain why the particle can or can't get through this or that type of mask, or why it's airborne, or it's droplets, or et cetera. There's plenty of competent people, but we're not hearing all the discussions clearly. So, for me, that's difficult. And, you just use your common sense sometimes, and that's why I think if you talk to 10 people on the subject, have the courage. And I say courage because some people will just block you out because, how dare you question what you're told? But look at all the countries. They're all doing different things. So there can't be one truth here. There's got to be something else. And let's participate in the thinking of this and stop judging.
You'd think we'd learn from the past, wouldn't you? But we just don't.
Apparently not. And there is no better way than staying stuck then creating mass stress and hysteria, mass fear. And so when people say this is the virus of fear, I'm thinking, yep, whoever said that, they're absolutely right. Not that there may not be a virus, but the thing is, we are viruses and bacteria. We are constantly in evolution with all, it's like we live in a paradigm where we think we're being attacked, which is a survival mode thinking. But these viruses and bacteria are inside us. There's more of those cells than blood cells, right? Like, and our entire evolution has been made possible because of bacteria and viruses. That's how we actually evolve. Yeah. So it's dance with them.
Yeah.
Right? Which, includes that I'm not allowed to use anymore, which is immune system. We're not allowed to talk about that anymore because apparently we don't have one now, and it's like, to me, this is it's really criminal that we are so not able to have context of everything and have these discussions. And we're really stuck in a paradigm that doesn't allow for even the discussion of evolution, and we're living under, here we can choose not to live in fear. But fear is definitely what we are being taught to overcome at this point. And
I think there's something definitely, well, for me, it's definitely made an impact for me to turn off the news, to turn Facebook off my phone, to really cut out anything that is going to heighten my sense of fear and anxiety, because half of what has been said and half of what I've watched, I don't trust. Mm-hmm. It's like I'm being fed this information, but I don't actually trust where the information's coming from or what people are saying anyway. So it's like, just cut it off.
It's just confusion. And that's the bad thoughts we're talking about. If it doesn't serve you, it's just stop that, right? And then spend time inside ourselves, and then spend time in honest, respectful, inquiry and discussion.
Yeah. I think that fear, as you rightly said, is contagious. It's contagious. It's so easy to pick up off other people. Mm-hmm. That's, to me, the dangerous part, is that element, that level of fear and anxiety in a whole community.
Mm-hmm. And the thing too, I think we are communal beings and we want to do right to others, right? So if we feel their fear, it's at least, I don't know, in Canada, that's where I am, you walk away and you respect I forget how many feet or meters it is right now, but, we walk away out of respect, and the thing is, all this is because we care on some level. And on the other level, what if this is not really the bottom line and we're just feeding into the fear and we're in fear? And how are we going to come back into real functioning? And what will be open at that point? So it's definitely a complicated situation.
And how does that impact on your practice? It's like, how do you keep your practice as clean as possible in a clean space?
When you say practice, you mean what type of practice are you meaning?
So for me, it's coaching and mentoring. Right. I keep that. It's like being conscious of keeping that space as clean as possible, where there's as little as interference as possible, which is quite difficult because it's like putting all of that to the side and coming from a clean space when I'm having those conversations with people. Sorry, I know we're going off track now.
So I was trying to understand, because practice, I'm thinking about all my poor practitioners that are like literally feeling like they have to close their doors.
Yeah.
Because they're small businesses, right? And people need their help, and I really feel for that. it's like those sort of mortar and pestle, is that the expression? Places are closing and small businesses are closing, And I think Connie was saying in the aside, we seem to be in a state of unknowing, and the unknown is one of the biggest fears we have, right? That's a very good point.
It's in a space of almost nothing, isn't it? Which creates a lot of anxiety and uncertainty.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
But also it's a double-edged sword, because it's also a great place to be in, because you can create something completely new almost, but it's a very uncomfortable place to be.
Yeah, it is. That's why I'm not completely pessimistic about what's happening. I'm definitely feeling the pain, the impact it's having. Battered women that are in their homes and can't get away from that. The children that are, experiencing all kinds of violence because of the constrictions and that. But it does. Can they get the help to get out? Is this actually even available? The suicide, the people, from loneliness or despair, or all the people who have worked, their whole life to get a business up and now have to close doors. So, you feel all that. I mean, I'm an empath, so I feel all that. And, we've also seen, less pollution. We've heard more birds. We've definitely seen an impact. We've also recognized, many people recognize that they really didn't like the job they had. It was a job, right? And it's like, what else can I do in this planet, in this world that's more meaningful? So that's also there. Or some people are saying, you know what, I love being with my kids. I'm going to homeschool. I don't really want to be apart. So many things have changed. And some relationships have been on the brink of collapse, and others have become stronger because of it. So, it is a sorting out, and we create the next step of our reality. But my message is, you must deal with the stress, whether you know it or you don't know it, that you're experiencing. Your body has stress. There's just no way around it. For me, and I mean, I don't think I have time to explain my whole story. I don't know when the time is over, but another time I can go into that.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It has been an enlightening conversation. I hope it's been as enlightening for everybody else as it has for me, because it's been very enlightening for me. I'm now going to stop it. I promise you I will stop those thoughts. I'm going to go right underneath and think about, what is that fear about?
I think that's the takeaway, if you want one of those, is take a moment while we have a moment and really look at what are the patterns that are in effect that you're doing that aren't serving you, because now you know why they're there. And then
look for the
stop it and put in other ones that work.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and no doubt I will see you soon.
Okay, thank you very much. And bye everyone.